After having analyzed the photography side of the Mavic 3, in this video I will go through all the different aspects of shooting video with the new DJI flagship. I will show you plenty of footage shot in the different color modes, in slow motion, and with both lenses, the main wide-angle one and the telephoto one. You will find all info and prices of the Mavic 3 in the description below. Let's have a quick look at all the settings we need to know for shooting footage. Regarding color modes, at the moment the only ones available are normal and DLog. The third one, HLG, which is the one I prefer, should be added in a couple of months by firmware upgrade. For both modes we have a choice of coding format. H.264 is the one that has been widely used for years. It is the most popular choice. H.265 is the codec of the future. It has the advantage of producing smaller files for the same quality, which is indeed handy. The downside is that it is more demanding in computer resources and not yet compatible with several software packages. For normal mode there is a choice for video bitrate between variable bitrate and constant bitrate. CBR is the one that gives the best quality. VBR is better suited for streaming live video. Normal mode is the one to use for oven-ready footage to be posted on social media without any editing. DLog is a flatter profile to be used for serious post-processing and increased dynamic range. This mode is flatter than in previous models, extremely flat, which is not a bad thing at all, but I find it a bit harder to monitor the scene in this mode, as the image on my tablet has extremely low contrast, and even finding the correct exposure is a bit more difficult, as the histogram is fooled by the lack of contrast, and there is a tendency to overexpose. The Mavic 2 Pro had an icon to reproduce an upgraded image on screen when in DLog mode. I hope this function will be added soon. When in DLog mode, the only difference in the settings is that the ISO range is limited to 400 and 800. Since the Mavic 3 has manual control of aperture, it is possible to set one or two of the three factors of exposure to auto. For example, we can set aperture to auto, and in this case the value will vary when we change the shutter speed to compensate, like in semi-automatic shutter speed priority. In the main screen we can choose the resolution and the frame rate, up to 50 frames per second at 5.1K and 60 frames per second at 4K and 1080p. If we choose slow motion in the photo video icon above the shutter, we can go up to a whopping 120 frames per second at 4K and 1080p for extreme slow motion. By tapping on the binocular icon next to the shutter, we access the zoom function, and from the icon below we can set the zoom value 2 times, 4 times, 7 times, which is the only level with optical zoom, as it engages the telephoto lens, and as you can see, the quality is much higher. Then we can go up digitally to 14 times and a whopping 28 times. Note that the zoom function at the moment can only shoot at 30 frames per second at 4K and at 1080p, and manual exposure is not available. In the R2S I find that normal mode needs a bit of tweaking, as it lacks contrast and saturation. This is not the case with the Mavic 3. The footage just out of the box looks excellent, and this is great news for users who need to quickly upload their masterpieces to the web. Most potential buyers of the Mavic 3 will be more interested in the 10-bit modes, DLog and the upcoming HLG, but normal can be further improved with a little color grading, and the files respond remarkably well. It is possible to set the gimbal to FPV mode, and this function now really works well, with the excellent new gimbal. At first I did not take it very seriously, but I can see some interesting ways to use it. I never particularly like the way DLog is implemented in the Air 2S and in the Mavic 2 Pro, with footage lacking detail, especially in overcast conditions. With both models I much prefer HLG. In the Mavic 3, DLog works much better. I've experimented with several different LUTs, and the detail and color rendition is always excellent. The files at 10-bit color at a bitrate of 200 Mbps are the most solid ever seen in any prosumer drone. I was able to tweak very heavily individual colors, or add a good deal of contrast without any artifacts or banding. I can't wait to see what the HLG mode will be like. In this case I was fooled by the ungraded DLog image on my tablet and I ended up overexposing with the sun on the border of the frame, but the result is still almost acceptable. Here it started to rain quite heavily, as you can see, but I could keep shooting footage without any drop of water sitting on the lens. This can be really useful. Good job, Hasselblad. Another major upgrade of the Mavic 3 is the increase of higher frame rates available at different resolution. Here you can see the same scene shot at a resolution of 4K, first at 24 frames per second, which is the frame rate of my timeline, and therefore is in normal speed. And then shot at 60 frames per second and interpreted at 24. Therefore 2.5 times slow motion. And finally shot at 120 frames per second for 5 times extreme slow motion. If you want to know more about how to use different frame rates for slow motion effects, click on the link appearing now to watch my video. The dual camera system is certainly the most visible novelty of the Mavic 3, and also the most discussed feature. Telephoto lens has a half-inch sensor and a fixed aperture of f4.4. It has often been criticized for the lower quality of footage and photos obtained, but I consider it a welcome addition, although I certainly hope that some new functionality will be added. Such a deep optical zoom is extremely useful for filming when we cannot get closer to the subject due to regulation, to avoid disturbing wildlife, or to get some very interesting parallax effect. A 7 times zoom factor, the image is certainly not as good as the one of the main lens, but I find it acceptable in certain situations. Moving to optical zoom at 14 times, there is a further degradation of quality, but it can occasionally be useful. At such deep zoom level, some care must be taken as panning and lateral movement can introduce some camera shake. When filming subject very far away, the air contains particles of dust, water or salt, especially over the sea. This has an impact on footage quality. I wouldn't normally include in this video analysis of the performance of the Mavic 3 with footage taken in low light and high dynamic range situations. But it has been raining constantly this week. Who said that it never rains in Sicily? I will do a follow-up video about it very soon. Click on this link to watch my video about the photography with the Mavic 3. I will add a link to the second part of this video as soon as I will publish it. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed it.